Hey there, thanks so much for joining me. You know when you feel a sneeze coming on and you don't want to sneeze? We have all sorts of hacks for that to try and prevent the sneeze from happening. For instance, you can rub the roof of your mouth with your tongue as hard as you can, and that might discourage the sneeze. You can also look into a bright light. That works for some people as well. These are coping mechanisms, and that's what I want to talk about in this episode, about coping mechanisms for your mental health, for anxiety attacks, for panic attacks, or just simply for anxieties and fears that seem to overwhelm you. Dr. Lorraine Patterson is a psychiatrist at Ontario Shore Centre for Mental Health Sciences and has some great ideas for you, including a toy box and why you should carry a rock in your pocket, maybe. We'll explain. Learning coping skills right now on the Mental Health Podcast. Hi, Lorraine. Always a pleasure to talk with you. We're going to be talking about anxiety and fear and coping mechanisms, but at the same time, I want to remind people that a lot of what we're talking about are more the short-term fixes, the duct tape, if you will. Some things still need to be dealt with, and maybe on a professional basis as well. So now that we've got that out of the way with, so let's first of all begin. And by the way, we're going to tell you later on about the importance of a toy box and maybe why you should carry a rock in your pocket. So stay tuned for that. But right now, let's talk about the fear and anxiety first of all. What is it?
Great question. So fear, let's start with that one first. Fear is the emotion that you feel in response to a real or perceived danger or threat, right? So fear is what's it's something you feel about something that is happening now. Anxiety is a little different. Anxiety is the emotion that you feel in response to an anticipated threat in the future. So it's about the fear you feel about something that's going to happen, that will happen, or that might happen. So whereas fear is present, anxiety is future. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it also sort of suggests that that anxiety, although it is a very real thing, and I know I've experienced the feelings inside, but it almost seems ridiculous. It almost seems unfounded that we're fearing something for when you examine it, no real big reason. Why does it weigh so heavily on us?
Yeah, great question. And that's part of the challenges and what can also be so challenging when it comes to anxiety. Because, there is no immediate threat. It's about the things that go on in our head. The other reality, though, is regardless of whether you're feeling fear or anxiety, what happens internally is often exactly the same. So here's an example I always like to share with people. If I'm driving on the 401, right, and I'm going my 120, and I've got somebody right up on my bumper, and then there's somebody right in front of me, and the other person's right beside me, so I'm kind of in the far left lane. If they're right on my bumper, right, even though I'm doing 120, and there's somebody immediately in front of me, that would be a beautiful example.
Okay, you'd probably look back and see my face behind that steering wheel, by the way. I'm sorry. I apologize now to everyone I followed too closely. Continue, I'm sorry.
But wouldn't it make sense that in that situation you would feel fear?
Yeah.
Because there's immediate threat that this person is going to hit me, especially if I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this person is going to hit me. And there's some potential reality to that if they're very that close. Anxiety, however, would be, I'm sitting at home. I haven't even left my house. And I'm thinking, what if when I get on that 401, somebody is on my tail again? What if I get in an accident? What if I don't make it to my destination? What if something bad happens? That's anxiety. And it often happens very automatically, and we often develop it in response to real threats. So if I was in a car accident, wouldn't it make sense? Or if I had enough bad experiences on the 401, wouldn't it make sense that I might feel some anxiety? Not just when I'm sitting at home, but even when I'm driving, and I might be thinking, what if something bad happens again? What if I lose control of this car? That's not fear, because nothing bad is happening in that moment. That's anxiety.
And this is very real. You know, someone may be sitting there saying, oh, you know what, I just got sort of mad someone's that close to me. But I have heard stories directly from people who have a fear of driving over bridges.
Yes,
There have been some extreme cases in which,
yes.
and I've only read about these, in which someone can't turn a certain direction left or can't turn right because,
Beautiful.
again, of this anxiety.
Exactly. And so here's the interesting thing. Often people come by that very honestly. Again, something happened that might have, and it might have been, I don't know, somebody swerved really quickly.
Mhm.
But if the fear was big enough, what ends up happening is that, fear, all that stuff, and I'll get into what happens internally, but all the stuff that happens gets kind of paired together, cued, or matched up in our nervous system, including our brains, with whatever surrounded it. So that's why, 10 years later, I might still be afraid of driving on the 401. And then if I avoid driving on the 401, what I can almost guarantee is that anxiety will just grow like a mushroom. And next thing you know, maybe I can't drive on any streets. And then next thing you know, because I then continue to avoid things and avoid things, it can get to the point where I'm barely leaving my house because I'm afraid if I leave, something bad's going to happen.
Mhm.
So that's how
And
it can start one way and grow like a mushroom.
yeah, and then it creates other phobias that you
Yeah,
might have about going out in public or something like that.
you got it.
And essentially, is it correct to say it is your body and your mind doing what it's supposed to do? It's just getting the wrong message. So I mean, it's kind of trying to protect us, right?
Absolutely. That's a great way to describe it. It is our nervous system doing everything that it was designed to, right? When I've got somebody on my bumper, it would make sense that I've got fear. What's going to end up happening? My heart is going to race. I might start to sweat. I might start to tremble. My body might tense up, right? All of that is designed to do what? To get the air and the oxygen to our big muscles so that we can do something, right? If you're in God forbid, in a situation when there's gunfire, you don't want to be thinking, do I go left or do I go right? You want your nervous system to take over and move. And that's why your heart will
Yeah.
race. So you can run or you can hide or you can fight if you're able to fight. So all of those things are normal, natural responses. And you're right, they get queued up and start getting activated even when there's no immediate danger.
And that's what when we hear those stories about someone who has done something heroic and they say, I didn't even think about it. I just
Exactly.
acted. This car fell on top of someone. I lifted the car. And we hear these stories
Exactly.
all the time. You don't even think about it. So, in a way, it's
Exactly.
good that our body reacts. We just have to be better messengers.
That's a great way to put it. Exactly. Better messengers and figuring out how do I, what's the word? Um, Unhook the old responses with the
Hmm.
feeling, right?
Yeah. And so we have, I'm a believer in a lot of Eastern medicines, such as acupuncture and that even
Mhm.
massage to that point, chiropractic, because quite often you go in and you say, I hurt here, and then they do something way over here,
Yeah.
to get a reaction that everything in our body is connected. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode is how we're hurting up here in our brain. How do I manipulate something or a thought or even a body part to try and remedy that, or at least provide me with some sort of relief? So we're going to talk about attention. We're going to talk about body part stimulations, things like that. So where do you want to begin?
Beautiful. So let's start with that, the idea of the mind-body connection, whether we're talking about fear or you're talking about anxiety. Because those, again, what differentiates those is what triggers it, what prompts it. But the same internal responses are identical, regardless of fear or anxiety. So what are they? There's the physical stuff, our heart racing, maybe sweating, palpitations, that is the heart really beating really fast. What are some others? Sometimes we get really hot, right? So those are some of the physical stuff. So some of the body hacks, you want to make sure that you address some of those physiological reactions. We also have action tendencies or urges to fight, to flee, to freeze, right? Those are automatic things. We can't control them. They're not something you think about. It's just something your body does to survive, right? And so we want to be able to attend to those. We might not be able to change it, but there's a lot that we can do to respond to it in ways that are helpful. There's also the cognitive component, right? Both in terms of where you put your attention, because when we're feeling scared, we are searching and looking for threat, right? In an effort to keep ourselves safe. So if you want to shift it, you can shift where you put your attention. And then there's what goes through your head. Usually when we're feeling anxious or we're feeling scared, we're thinking things like, oh my God, something bad's going to happen. I'm going to die. I'm going to lose control. I'm going to go crazy. I can't handle this. This is awful. I got to stop it. So we can shift what we tell ourselves when we're feeling anxious as a way of dialing down some of the intensity. And then there's what we do on our outside, right? What we say, what we do verbally and non-verbally, right? When we're anxious, what do we usually do? We often make ourselves small. Our shoulders are up in our ears, right? We're holding our body either really tense. Sometimes we're pacing back and forth. When we do that, we keep pacing, that anxiety is just going to creep up and up and up, or at least stay high, right?
And if I could at this point, then what we are talking about first and foremost is that recognition,
You got it.
like stopping, pausing,
Yeah,
and realizing, first of all, that we're anxious instead of letting that fear overtake us.
exactly.
If you can train yourself to just stop and say, wait, I am worried about that presentation next week, and I know I'm going to do fine. I know it's good, and I know that I'm well prepared for it. But you're
There you go.
realizing, first of all, that you have anxiety about this.
Exactly. So you're right. So the first step is to what? Yeah, recognize what's happening. Notice that, okay, my heart is beating. Oh my God, I'm starting to worry about that presentation, or I'm worried about getting on the 401, or I'm repeating and reliving, rethinking about some stuff that happened 2 days, weeks, decades ago, right?
It's like any 12-step program, right? Recognize you have a problem. Like that's the very first thing they always tell you.
You got it. And one of the ways we often use in therapy, we say you got to name it to tame it, right? Mm-hmm. In order to recognize that you're feeling, in order to tame the anxiety, you first need to name it. Okay, this is what's happening in this moment.
Okay, so sometimes that can be problematic because then you start, there's a danger of overthinking it as well.
You got it. Overthinking it in terms of that we just kind of get caught up in the thoughts of it and trying to prepare and avoid the anxiety, trying to escape it. And that's when life gets really narrow. Like I gave the example of the 401 and driving. And then next thing you know, you're not driving on the 401. Next thing you know, you're not driving, period. Next thing you know, you're not leaving your house. So life kind of becomes more and more narrow as we try to manage the anxiety in unhealthy ways by escaping and avoiding things. Right. So even in the moment, that's one of the big things we want to make sure that we try to avoid. Right. We want to avoid avoiding.
Avoiding. I like
absolutely.
That. Name it to tame it. Avoid. We should be putting this on cushions. So here we go. And this could be applied to any situation, but we're using the 401 because we've got that. We're going to use that as sort of a, an all-encompassing anxiety. So I'm on the 401 and I am aware, oh my gosh, I am starting to sweat a bit here. My heart is going a little bit faster. What coping mechanism can I use next?
Beautiful. So one of the things I know, for example, I'm going to start with my body, right? Because that's the first thing I can control the most. Usually when I'm feeling anxious, I'm gripping that wheel like it's a vice, right? So you can almost relax. You're still holding onto the wheel because you're driving. But you want to maybe, instead of gripping it really tight, kind of loosen your hands. Because the more tight you hold it on, it's like you're holding on to the anxiety. Yeah. While you're doing that, again, remember, when you're feeling anxious or fearful, our breathing will change. It'll get more rapid. So slowly kind of controlling your breath, right? Maybe taking some deep breaths. Rather than scanning for the danger and looking at the guy in the back, I'm going to be maybe scanning for safety, figuring out what I can do. Can I move a little bit to the left so I can let this person know that maybe there's something in front of me that I can't move, right? So that's actually changing my actions. And you also gave a beautiful example of the mental part, the self-talk, the cognitive. You could say reassuring things to yourself. Lorraine, you're going to make it through. Lorraine, you made it. You've done it. You've been here before. This too will pass. You're doing okay. So just talking to yourself in calming and soothing ways, right? We put all those things together, the anxiety will come down. And even if it doesn't go down, it doesn't tend to get bigger. Or if it does, it can go up and down a little bit. And you just keep repeating it over and over.
Now, I've used your advice before, especially about the breathing, and that's what you mental health people always come back to the breathing, always to the breathing.
It's so true.
But I don't want people to think that it's like taking an aspirin, that immediately things are going to change. Because when I've done the self-talk, at first it was that this isn't working. It takes a while to be able to listen to yourself and, I guess, trust yourself.
You got it. Absolutely. It takes not only a lot of work and energy, it takes a lot of repetition and practice. And the first 2 times it might not work. Heck, the first 10 times, 20 times it might not work. But it's about kind of getting into the habit and doing it over and over and over, because maybe the 21st time it does work. And again, then it speaks to the question, what do you mean by work? Work does not mean, none of those things are going to take you from a 10 to a 0. Work means, at least the way I'm saying work, that it helps you get through the moment without making things worse. Even if it just holds it at a 9, then it's working and it's not moving to a 10. If it moves from a 9 to an 8, it's working, right? So we have to also adjust some of our expectations of what do we mean when I say working, right?
Let's talk about some anxious situations, though, when you're meeting somebody. Now, it can be anybody from family who you might, be a little dysfunctional with. It could be a boss or a colleague at work that you don't seem to vibe with. It could be something as serious as a bully, and you start working this up. Oh my gosh. And then it becomes almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, because then you get there and the way you're acting creates even more of a division. So how do I prepare myself for something that is not physical, like worried about crashing my car, just simply worried in social situations?
Yeah, a great question. So one of the things, again, if you keep in mind the same ideas, perception, where do you put your attention? Thoughts, what do you say to yourself? What do you do internally in terms of those physiological reactions and body urges? And then what do you do verbally, non-verbally? It's the same thing. It just might shift depending on the circumstance. So if it's social, you might look for the friendlies. Look for the friendly faces, the people that look a little bit pleasant that you could approach, right? Instead of avoiding and just kind of hugging the wall. So that would be one of the things. The other thing is you can, relax your face, because again, our body holds tension, and if we hold it on, we're holding in the anxiety and the fear.
And that
so you might want to relax your face a little bit.
And that leads me to something else too, because there's a lot of talk about this vagus nerve that we have, and if we would learn to manipulate it properly and use it properly, we could solve so many of our problems as far as anxiety goes. And when you talk about loosening your face, that's what you're doing. You're manipulating your vagus nerve.
You got it. Right? Grabbing instead of an alcoholic beverage in that social situation, which might make you feel better in the short run, but actually might increase the anxiety in the long run. You might grab something cold to drink. A cold drink of water with some ice in it. Because when we're feeling anxious, our body temperature typically increases. That's a quick and dirty way. Nobody needs to know you're doing it, to calm your nervous system.
So are you drinking that, or are you sort of pressing it against yourself?
Well, if there's water, I hope you don't press water against yourself.
shower, pour it on your
I was
head.
saying drink it. Right? You
That'll
drink it.
distract you.
Exactly. But if you have like one of those cold water bottles, you can go like this. Boy, I'm hot.
So
Nobody
put
needs
it
to
up
know why
against
you're
your
hot.
neck. Yeah.
You got it. Or sometimes just holding it in your hand, right? The coldness will grab your attention, at least for a moment, rather than focusing on, oh my God, nobody's going to like me. No, my God, everybody's thinking I don't belong here. I don't belong here. Give yourself, you decide where to put your attention. For this moment, I'm going to focus on my hand. Maybe going to the washroom and splashing some cold water on your face, right? Just as a way of, again, dealing with those physiological reactions that you can't control or stop from happening, but you can respond differently to.
Now, you speak about going to the bathroom, and it's kind of an interesting coping mechanism of mine in a lot of social situations where I just sort of say, you know what? I need to remove myself from here,
Exactly.
and I can go into the bathroom because I'm alone in there. So sometimes I'll do that, and then do the breathing that you talk about
Yes,
to sort of reset.
You got it. You got it. And when we're in, especially if it's one of the private bathrooms, one of the things you can do is kind of run on the spot. Run on the spot for 20 seconds. I'm not talking to go and doing a marathon. 20 seconds. Why? Because when you stop, what do you think will happen? The minute you stop running for that 20 seconds or doing, push-ups against the wall, what do you think will happen the minute you stop?
It's going to distract you.
Well, yes, it will distract you, but what will happen is when you're doing the push-ups, when you're, against the wall.
Wait, you didn't tell me to do push-ups. Well, I'm not doing exercise here, Lorraine.
I mean, against the wall, you know what I mean? Or running in place. The minute you do it, your heart rate will go up. That's the point. Yeah, and then the minute you stop, your heart rate will naturally come down. It has to.
Oh.
Which means you're hacking that heart rate increase.
You're fighting fire with fire.
Bingo.
Wow. Okay. I love that. So once we have done, in fact, you know what I'm just thinking too? I mean, I love the running on the spot idea too, because even if you were driving down a highway, you could pull into a service area, a service center or something and get out of the car. And I never thought about that. Just simply do a 20-second jog on the spot.
Run to the Tim Hortons. Nobody needs to know why you're running, but you run because you just want to get your heart rate up. Even higher than it already is, so that when you stop, it will come down. Now, the trick you need to keep in mind is that might bring it down quickly. It's like splashing cold water. It will bring it down quickly, but it's not going to stay down very long unless you add different things to the mix. Okay. So that's when you want to use your self-talk. I'm going to make it through it. This too will pass. Instead of judging yourself, I'm just going through a moment. It feels uncomfortable, but it's not a catastrophe.
And we've spoken in the past, too. You've got to be kind to yourself. You can't say, come on, Kevin, this is silly. You're being really stupid here. Instead, say, and the way you were saying it, I'm going to get through this. It's okay.
Exactly.
You got to be kind to yourself.
Yes,
we talk to ourselves sometimes worse when we talk to total strangers.
Isn't that true?
And being kind to yourself is important.
Absolutely. In fact, because, it's interesting. There's a lot of research about compassion. And what we know, is that, yes, when we're anxious, we often then judge ourselves. And now we've got two problems for the price of one. We're anxious and scared, and now we're angry with ourselves and feeling ashamed. Whereas compassion, it's hard to feel two different things, opposite things at the same time. So the more kind we can be with ourselves in the moment, it actually can help balance out the intensity of the anxiety. Not get rid of it. That's not the point. The point is just to get through that moment in a healthy way.
When I taught journalism and I taught students how to talk on camera and to do it live, and there was one student that she had a panic attack every time she had to go live. She was fine recording in front of a camera, but to go live. And so what I told her to do and taught her to do is we were outside about to do a live hit, and she was doing this. She couldn't go on. So I said, okay, take a look. And there was a flagpole. I said, take a look at this flag. And I want you to sort of consider the color of the flag. Which way is it waving? Where is the wind coming from? How heavy? And I went on for about 30 seconds asking her to describe different aspects of it. And then I asked her how she felt. And she said, Okay. I think I can do this. What did I just do? It just
Beautiful.
seemed to be a natural thing to do. What happened there?
So what I would hypothesize, again, this is just a guess. It would be interesting to talk to that person to help find out what helped. I would imagine it's almost like, when you're watching TV and you don't like the channel, you change the channel. Well, back in the day, you would actually change
You would
the
actually
channel.
have to stand up and turn the knob, my
Get up and
friends.
do it, exactly. Use your remote, change it. Or you don't like that YouTube, well, change it, put fast forward. Essentially, you're redirecting your attention. Rather than focusing on the worry, I'm going to screw this up. It's live. I can't change it. I got to make it perfect. Whatever the narrative is, the story in the head, by focusing on this, something outside of yourself, it redirects your attention. So that puts you in the driver's seat, right? And that'll help reduce the intensity.
All right, I really want to get to the toy box because I love this idea of yours. You have a toy box, and for those watching on video, we can we see it? Do we get to see it?
Sure. Now this is I have
Describe what's in it.
All right. I have multiple versions. This is a miniature one. My real big one is at home, but for the folks who can't see, one of these things it's one of those a squeezy thing, and it's got different colors. I use it for multiple different reasons, but when you can't sit still and you want to pace, and people keep saying, therapists like myself keep saying, breathe, breathe. Well, somebody was brilliant. A client said to me, Lorraine, you damn therapists keep saying to breathe, but when I'm feeling anxious, I need to move my body before I can start breathing. So doing something with your hands, rather than fidgeting or picking at yourself, you do something that's not going to hurt yourself or your body.
It's almost like that jogging on the spot kind of thing where you're actually physically doing something. Yeah.
Exactly. Right? So it's almost going with what the urge is, which is just to move, right? The body says when you're anxious, don't just sit there, do something. So giving it something to do. Sometimes when we're anxious, usually in my kit, I have some candy. So this is a little kiss, a Hershey's Kiss chocolate. Again, to soothe. I happen to like chocolate. So when I'm feeling anxious, the sweetness, this tastiness, it can be a mental distraction, but it also can soothe my nervous system a bit, right? Sometimes what I also have are a pad of paper and some crayons, doodling. When I'm in a meeting and I'm starting to feel anxious, or for me it's more irritated and I want to make sure I don't say something that then I end up feeling bad about, I get out my pen and paper and I doodle. It's a beautiful distraction. It gets me off of, why is this happening? This shouldn't be happening. Why are they doing this? To, let me just look at this. I'm going to draw this clown, or I'm going to draw this, right? So then it redirects my attention to something that's more useful. So then eventually I can lean back into the meeting.
All right, one more thing.
One more thing. Here's a rock.
It's just a rock, Lorraine. That's all it is
right?
Just a rock. What's it doing in the toy box?
Because when you hold it in your hand, you know what I feel? It's cool. And again, it's not the same as putting ice on the back of your neck, but the coldness can be soothing. And if nothing else, if I'm getting so anxious that I'm moving into the freeze response, I'm dissociating, this rock is here, it's present. I can use it as a cue that I'm safe, that nothing bad is happening. I just need to survive the storm. I tell people, keep a rock in your pocket for that very reason, or something that reminds you that you're safe. There's no catastrophe.
Rock in your pocket, and I think too visually, because you talked earlier about the senses. I think too visually you can distract yourself, because if you ever really look at a rock, it's very intricate. It's made up of really a whole bunch of other little rocks, and so you can sort of see the different glistenings and the different color variations, and that. So you could use that as well. And what I love about the toy box is you don't have to have Lorraine's toy box. You can have your own. What in there really works for you? It could be a picture of something.
Exactly, right? It could be a picture, a momentum. What I often say to people is, put pictures of people you love and care about, who talk to you in kind and compassionate ways. And then when you're trying to come up with something calming, remember what that person who loves you would say, or what you would say to that person if they were going through the same thing. It can help you conjure up that inner compassion, right? If you love music, put something in there that represents music.
Mm.
The whole point is, because when you're at a 10 out of 10 or you're 9 out of 9 or 7, you don't want to be thinking, what should I do? Because in those moments, you won't be able to remember or think about it because your brain will be focusing on the threat. But if you have a little, we call it a distress tolerance kit or
I call it a
self-care.
toy box.
There you go. You can call it a toy box. It just is a visual reminder so you don't have to think, what do I do? It's all there. It's like a GPS.
Hey, let's you and me go into business and sell these things.
Well, the thing is, like you said, what works for you will be different than what works for me. Everybody needs to make their own.
And that's what this whole conversation we've just had. It may or may not work for you, but hopefully what we've done is we've made people at least consider it and think about it. If nothing that we've discussed here today works for you, then come up with something better. And I think that challenge in itself will help be therapeutic for you.
Exactly. Can I say one other thing before we wrap up? Because we've talked about, again, what we can do in the short run. But here's what I can promise you. If you would do all those things, if let's say the fear is social situations, and we're kind of doing a lot of the reassuring self-talk and driving, if we want to get through it for the long term, not just get through this moment, then we need to kind of expose ourselves. The real long-term solution to anxiety and fear is to expose ourselves repeatedly over and over and over again to the things that scare us the very most. Because usually what happens is we do it and then we cut out, we bail, we bolt, we exit the situation, which ensures that, because we're going to feel relief the minute we do it, and that relief is going to reinforce and increase the likelihood that you bolt again and again and again, which means the fear never decreases, it only grows. So if we want to do it in the long run, we need to expose ourselves. That's the real deal.
So essentially, I think probably the greatest tip is to seek help, to seek counseling,
Absolutely.
no matter what. All right.
But I guess what I'm also saying is that you can expose yourself in many ways. So it might be, instead of avoiding the highway, I'm getting on the highway. And instead of only focusing, I'm actually, and just doing reassuring self-talk, I'm letting let my mind go where it tends to go, that these bad things will happen. Not so that I can realize, because what ends up happening is what goes up eventually comes down. It will come down on its own as long as we're not adding fuel to it by saying this is horrible, or oh my God, I can't look at it, I need to avoid it, I need to distract by it, I need to reassure myself that the bad thing won't happen. The reality is bad things happen. And being able to even face that painful reality without turning it into a catastrophe.
But the thing is bad things happen, but more good things happen than bad things. We have to keep reminding ourselves of that.
Yeah, and another piece is bad things happen, and there are things that we can do to get through those bad things.
All right, Lorraine. Love talking with you all the time. Thank you so much for this. Hopefully that we have helped a few people out there. But as you say, if you feel you need help, then seek that help. Thanks so much for this.
My pleasure. All the best, Kevin.
Thank you. And don't forget, we have a bunch of resources, including some of Lorraine's tips. We've sort of put them all together for you on our website, ontarioshores.ca/podcast. Thanks so much for spending this time with us. Hopefully you'll seek us again and subscribe to us. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other.